Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening for 5&Under. As you are aware, 5&Under is Start Gallery's annual event where we bring back alums who have recently graduated. I'll note this year, some of us are more than 5&Under years out. And that's, of course, because we've invited back the alums who have presented in our Start Stream exhibition, which is available online at startgallery.wfu.edu. And so today we have joining with us Pauline Arroyo, 2016, Christy Chan, who unfortunately could not make it this evening, sends her regards. And then we have Courtney Geiger, who graduated in 2019, Libby Williams, who graduated in 2018. And today, this evening, everyone's going to speak about a little bit on, what they've done since graduation. So everybody studied art in undergrad here at Wake. And of course, our paths after graduation lead us in different places, different locations, different jobs. And we always think it's great to have the opportunity to invite back our alums to speak to us a little bit about, what that transition between, from undergrad into the real world, as we say, is like. And so without further ado, just as a reminder, this is information about the Start Stream exhibition. In case the 5&Under poster looked kind of similar, I recycled the same images. And so these are all screenshots from some of the 7 video artworks that we have on the Start Stream virtual exhibition, which is available on the Start Gallery website. And first, I would like to introduce Pauline Arroyo. And if you'd like to take it away.
Thank you so much, Kayla. I appreciate the intro. So again, my name's Pauline. I graduated I was in the class of 2016. I graduated in 2015, technically. With my presentation, I just kind of wanted to go over how my relationship with art and the arts in general has kind of evolved since graduating. But before going into how it's evolved, I wanted to start us off with kind of where it started in Wake. Before going to college, I didn't have a wealth of experience in art. It was something I always kind of viewed from afar and really admired. And then I got to school, and it was amazing to me because I got to learn, as I'm sure many of you have, all these new mediums that you've never used before, whether it's stone carving and oil painting, things I didn't think I'd get to do, to making kind of like an interpretive, like found object sculptures and things like that. But it was also a time when I started having kind of a little bit of a push and pull between just the pure joy of making something and then these other concepts and notions surrounding art industry, and all the things that come with that. So a little bit of a push and pull happened there. And kind of relates back to that center image, which was actually, it was a piece of like draft paper that was put on the board of one of my first drawing classes. And just kind of those mantras and thoughts have really stuck with me during my time at Wake and after. Moving on to the next slide. I would kind of refer to this period as kind of like immediately after graduating as kind of like the honeymoon period a little bit. Right after graduating, I got to be on the inaugural trip to see the Venice Biennale, and that in itself is an amazing experience, and one that I hope all of you get to have someday in the future. You get to be surrounded by art and have all these, important thoughts and discussions about art. And it's like this really great empowering feeling. And then immediately after that, I moved back home to a small town in South Carolina where I'm from. And I moved back with my parents. And it was definitely a little bit of a contrast. And that was kind of my first step of kind of saying like, okay, this is what it's like post grad, and when you're not in school and you don't have an assignment that forces you to do the thing that you love, art. But it does, when you're at school, you have assignments and you have to do it. When you're not in school, it's kind of up to you. And I made adjustments like making a small studio in my parents' garage because I still really wanted to do oil painting. I had all these ideas of like, if I'm gonna paint, it's gotta be oil. And I don't know why I thought that way, but I did. And I had a job working at a restaurant. And so a lot of times I was really tired and I didn't smell great. And so I wasn't always in the mood to make art. But when I did, I still had some of those same ideas I had from college, and it was exciting to get to continue them. During the same time period, I eventually got a job at an art nonprofit. And that's kind of a great path to take on after you graduate, is to be in a place surrounded by other creative people, whether it's necessarily an art organization like that or something else, just something where you have other people that are wanting to make things. It's great because it's inspirational, but it's also great because you meet people that way and you get to be part of unique experiences. And that's kind of what happened with me there. I got to be part of an art festival there, in a nearby town, and that was really exciting. I was asked to make art, and I got to share it with other people, and that was really great. But as with all honeymoons, eventually the honeymoon has to be over, which brings us to our next slide. I decided that it was kind of time to fly the coop. After 2 years of living at home, I was like, I can't do this forever. And so I somewhat spontaneously decided to move to California because I'd never been there before. I moved to Sacramento, California. So maybe not the California you were thinking of, but it was a place I had visited for 2 days. And I decided, good as place as any to try a new phase of life. And this was kind of a period where I think my relationship with the art kind of floundered a little bit because I was having a hard time allowing events to change me. I was having a hard time dealing with new priorities, like having to find a job and a place to live and income and safety and security, because I hadn't really thought any of those things through before moving. So when you have other things like that kind of taking center stage in your mind, you don't always feel prepared or able or comfortable making art, and that's okay. It's just a matter of figuring out the next step. So during that time, a lot of times I felt uninspired, or if I was frustrated because I couldn't work with old materials I was used to working with. I didn't have the space anymore. But it also caused me to pivot. I learned how to paint with acrylics. I started doing more small video clips, not necessarily like full on like short films anymore. But I always would kind of make smaller what I was doing. I would say, oh, I'm not really making art. I'm doing practice. So when I would make something, I would say I was just practicing, or someone would ask me to make a portrait or a painting for them, like that I have on that slide. Someone asked, "Can you make a painting of Nipsey Hussle?" And so I did that, and I really enjoyed doing that. Um, but during this time, I also kind of felt like I didn't go to art as a thing to relax with. In the picture, you can see what I like to relax with, which is a couple of beers, which I'm sure many of us do. So I was kind of learning that balance as well. And then kind of in the next slide is when I started to kind of shift my relationship with art back more in a positive way. And a big part that allowed this to happen was I got a new job. I started working full time from home with a company named Stitch Fix. And the really big appeal to me of working with this company was not only that I get to do really great creative things, where I get to do things with fashion and styling and writing copy and blog posts, and marketing things, which is all really great. But I really, really wanted this job because I'd be able to work from home and set my own hours. And this to me would take away the excuse of I don't have time for art, because now the onus is all on me. I got to figure out and own my own schedule in that kind of way. So if you find yourself in a place after graduating where art isn't your 9 to 5, I would recommend possibly thinking about something that gives you flexibility like that. The second thing that during this time changed my relationship with art was, of course, the pandemic, which I'm sure it did for everybody in some way, shape, or form. It changed something in your life. Just looking at time and the way I was spending time and just thinking about time probably too much, I decided that was kind of time to get rid of the veil that I had around art of being this precious thing, and that when you put pen to paper, when you start making something, it has to be art with a capital A. I started thinking of it just as sometimes you just want to make something, and that's okay. And you don't have to write it off as practice. You don't have to put it in a corner, and you don't have to be like, this has to be on a wall. It's just really great to make something. And that started being a really satisfying feeling where I would just try to make something every day. One of the things I discovered during this time was watercolors and drawing with pen. And they were things I hadn't done before because I was uncomfortable with them. And I started drawing a lot of like botanical things, like that you can see here. Like, I started drawing a lot of plants and fungi, and I got a pet rabbit in quarantine, and so I draw him all the time. And they were things I never would have drawn before, but I always wanted to. I never drew them before because I didn't give myself permission to. And then when I got rid of the idea of permission, that's what I started making. So I have been working on getting rid of this paralysis of creation that was somewhat kind of learned at school, but also a lot just from my own thing. So then in the next slide is kind of where I am now with art. So my relationship with art, as you can see, it's had its ups, it's down, it's been fraught, a little bit of panicked, but it's all underwritten with this idea of loving art and loving to make it. Um, and so I've been trying to focus just more on that of making time, and I have the hope of in the future that when things return to some kind of normal, or when we feel more comfortable being around other people, I can go out and meet those other people who like to make things too. And I try to just tell myself every day to just make my relationship with art be about forgetting about good, learning to love my experiments, and truly allowing events to change me. Because when they do, you can make really great art, either small a or capital A art. And understanding that it's a process. And I would just wrap up by saying that, like, I don't feel this way every day, and I certainly still struggle with it, but I know it's a process, and the process is more important than the outcome. So thank you.
Thank you. And also, before we continue, I wanted to let everybody know that if we have questions for any of our presenters, we're going to basically go through all three presentations first and then save the questions for the end. That way we can have a more kind of informal chat. And so thank you again, Pauline. And I'd like to move on to our next presentation from Courtney.
Cool. All right. So as you see here, my name's Courtney Geiger. I graduated from Wake in 2019, so not quite 2 years yet, but getting very close. And studio art was actually my minor at Wake, so I spent a lot of time. I feel like I was like a proxy minor, major, just because I spent so much time in the art department because I loved it so much. But so yeah, my main focus at Wake was definitely video art and a little bit of photography, like at the very end. But this is like one of the first, or this is like the early kind of works I had at Wake. So the one you see on the left is a short film or a single channel video called Blackface. And I made that like as a response to a lot of the police brutality that was happening in the world like at the time. And I would say that was my first time like kind of using artwork to respond to something that I was like angry about or something I had a like strong emotion about, and kind of imprinting my own worldview onto something that I made. Because before that, I saw art as a lot like what Pauline was saying. Like I saw it as kind of this like something that I couldn't really participate in or something that I might not be able to do or do well. So yeah, Blackface was definitely my first time like feeling like I had something to say and then actually having a place to put that. And then the next one was kind of the first time that video, the next video is called Baddie. And it was actually, it's a single channel video, but it's got uh, several videos like on one channel, if that makes sense. So that was the first time I kind of started exploring more of like what I kind of do now, which is like exploring like Black womanhood, especially like young Black women, and just issues like social issues you face like for that gender, but also the race. So in that project, Baddie, I took inspiration from Carrie Mae Weems's photography series, the kitchen table series, where you see she has herself in like various positions throughout the table. And I was thinking like about how that might look in a bedroom instead, and kind of just showing like power dynamics and relationships to different people who might come into that space as a Black woman. Yeah, so that was like the early stuff at Wake. And then the next slide I don't know, this is what's actually on the online exhibition right now, but this was kind of my junior year at Wake, and this is a 5-channel video art project. And again, like I was saying, by this point I had kind of already gotten into using artwork to respond to how I was feeling about like social issues. So as you can see, the title, Wish I Were a Kardashian So I Could Be Black. I was responding to basically Kardashian and current like girl internet culture, and how it was appropriating a lot from Black women, but obviously not giving credit to Black women, but how that could actually like become an internalized kind of um oppression for Black women. So the even that I'm in this video, as you can tell, but I'm using like my own body, I'm a Black woman, to kind of explain or to show how those like beauty standards, which are from Black women, are like derived from Black women, how they become internalized, and you end up kind of like putting these like weird beauty standards like back on yourself in a weird way. So yeah, that's kind of like the middle of my experience at Wake. And yeah, these are also the photographs that go along with it. The one, I don't know if you guys, I can't really see it, but the one on the very end with like the butt injections with the needles, that one was taken like directly from a magazine shoot that Kim Kardashian had done, the Paper magazine. It's like infamous, where she's like naked on the cover. And again, just like thinking about how those like beauty, like body alterations that are taken from Black women, then like imposed and then like put on to white women, and how those are read and interpreted differently by our society. So the next slide. Yes, this was one of the last things I did. This was the last thing actually that I did at Wake. And it's called, I didn't want to put the expletive in there, but it's the Celebrated Rich Bees of Ascot. And I was just, it's honestly kind of a funny mockumentary type like satire of another like cultural kind of like touchstone of Black culture today, which is the like reality TV star. So I was thinking about like the Real Housewives of Atlanta, and how they're kind of like, they make this kind of like farce out of themselves. Like they're just kind of um super like over the top, and they just kind of like yell at each other all the time, and like make these like fools of themselves really. And I related that to as you can see, like it's kind of like the first picture I showed, or the first still I showed with blackface, related that to like the history of performance that Black people have, had in America for centuries, and kind of that idea of like performing performing like for an audience, but also, reinforcing a stereotype at the same time. Yes. So the next slide, these are the installation photos that I took. I was in the class with Joel Talbert and Finn, and they do a video installation class. I think it's only like every 2 years or so, but I took that class my last semester of senior year, and that was what the installation looked like. Yeah. And this is what I've been doing since graduation. So a lot like what Pauline was saying, after graduation, I was like, what do I do? And how do I keep making art? Because I had so many resources at Wake to make artwork, and I felt like I was starting completely over. So a lot like Pauline said, I came back home to my small town in South Carolina and like just started making stuff. I shot this in my parents' garage. So yeah, I just I knew that my drive for artwork to make artwork was still really strong. And I was like, I don't want to give that up. I know I'm going to have to like, participate in the real world too, just to support myself, but I don't want to, give up on my, art, like the habit I had kind of like developed while in school. So this photo series is actually, or these two photos are actually taken from a larger series called Confection. And I was thinking about how, again, Black women are very, and like in our society, especially with like beauty standards, how skin tone is like related to or often described as like food items, or like how Black women are kind of like reduced to like little treats, like, you know, when you refer to someone's skin as like chocolate or like caramel. um and in this one I was thinking about like the paper bag test, which is like historically been used to, you know, differentiate lighter skinned women and dark skinned women. And then I was thinking about how to use, like, about using that as kind of like a marker for beauty. So I made it a face mask. um so yeah, that's Confection. And then these are more photos that I took as a part of Confection. The food swatches, just like comparing different skin tones using food items, and then actually using food items as like facial like masks and everything too. So yep. And then this one, I actually shot this on my iPhone. And that was the first time I'd ever done that. But I saw a photograph of a of Jordan Woods, who's like an Instagram girl, like kind of like a hot girl. And I was thinking about the idea of like being a hot girl and kind of how restrictive that can be. Even though it's like praised in our society, but it's another form of restriction to me. So I'm just kind of honestly making fun of the idea of like posing for the internet and like being hot, like how to properly pose, how to like look good for the internet, you know. Yeah, so these are just the photographs I took, but then I also have some Instagram edits I made where I made them basically look like Instagram posts. And as you can see, they have like little sayings and stuff under it. Um, and I would say, like, honestly, what I've noticed about my artwork and how I've transitioned is it's gotten a lot more like satirical and like biting, I guess you could say. It's very I like respond to something I don't like about the world, and then I make some artwork about that, typically some experience I've had. But yeah, that's kind of like the vein I've noticed that I've been going in lately. But I think the next one I'll talk about what I'm currently doing. So this was kind of a big step for me to take, but I actually immediately after graduation I started writing a screenplay for Clout, as you can see. And so I started writing that like probably like late June after I graduated, and then I like workshopped it with this group, a local group here in South Carolina. And honestly, I have to give them a lot of credit because they just encouraged me to like make this project. So I've been working with like actors here in Columbia, and some actors like throughout the state. But I've been working on this film, Clout, and it's going really well. We're like pretty much at the end now, which is great. Because it's actually really exhausting to like produce independent projects. But it's been, honestly, like I kind of wouldn't like have it any other way, just because it's been such a great I've learned so much, like just actually going out and like fighting to like make this happen, you know. So yeah, I would say that I think my time at Wake definitely like prepared me skill wise to be able to produce a project like this. Just taking like all of the video art classes I could, taking all of the even like art history classes, and taking like world cinema and everything. It only like um helped to either like increase my knowledge about cinema or like filmmaking, or it actually like helped me increase like tangible skills like editing, or you know, something like lighting or like sound or whatever, you know. So yeah, I think, I don't know if she's going to show the next slide. I have like some film stills I can show, but these are some stills from the project that we've shot so far. And like I was saying, I think that I'm like continuing to explore, you know, myself as an artist. And how did you get funding? I funded myself. Sorry. Somebody like sent a question, but yeah, that's another thing too, is like I do work also. So it's been interesting taking something totally from like my own idea and funding it, and like finding the actors, finding the resources, you know, kind of like basically giving myself what Wake had given me before in resources, giving myself that opportunity to continue to make work. So I'm really excited about this project.
Thanks, Courtney. Thank you for sharing your work with us. Again, we'll save most of the Q&A for the end, but I'm going to go ahead and move on to Libby. So thanks again, Courtney.
All right, hey everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Libby Williams. I'm from Richmond. I currently live in Austin. Love Austin, cannot speak more highly of it. I was class of 2018. I was economics and studio art major. I mostly focused on video art. I did a little sculpture. I just kind of threw together like a collage of like stuff I did in undergrad. So there's like a lot on here. I included like drawing, and I don't know if you guys take Professor Finn's class, like the intro to sculpture, but the top left is my WTF project. And then I think my favorite project I ever did in undergrad was when I raised some baby chicks publicly. It was for Professor Finn's public art class, but the 4 pictures kind of in the bottom right show the like progression of that. But I mostly focused on video all in all. I included a little pic of me and Joel there in the corner because he helped out a ton with that. So yeah, I mean, I did a lot of different stuff. I did want to go over my honors project a bit though, just because it was a part of like the virtual event. So I didn't know if you guys wanted me to do like an intro on that, but basically at the time I was thinking a lot about like consumption and the culture of overconsumption and advertising. So very like Andy Warhol, but I started with like an empty room and like developed this almost like interactive installation. So you can see like the top left pic is like the empty white room, and I kind of tried to show like the process. Brought in a bunch of palettes, I painted some ceiling tiles, got a bunch of receipts, and then created like this magazine cave. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to create like a claustrophobic space that like mimicked certain aspects of our consumer culture. So there was like a lot of moving pieces, but basically it was just supposed to make you feel like you're at this like big advertisement Black Friday rave thing. So, but I also use like a lot of mirrors to create the sense that you were kind of like not only like a victim of mass consumerism, but also like an accomplice within it. So hopefully the videos kind of give like a better like idea of what it was like to be there. But yeah, that was basically that. But now I unfortunately did not pursue like art or creative career right out of college. I currently work for a company called GLG, which for most of you probably don't know, we're like a middleman basically. Like I help my clients, who are generally like private equity analysts, answer research questions by connecting them to like consultants in that particular industry. I've been there for about 2.5 or 3 years now. It's not my passion, you know, it's clearly not creative, but I do eventually plan on like pursuing a more creative field. I'm actually thinking about doing architecture school, so I'm getting a bunch of like materials together to do that. COVID kind of did put that on pause for a bit, but I'm actually making the move to LA in July to pursue a more creative field in the meantime. So definitely looking forward to that. You know, this isn't to say though I haven't like valued my time at GLG. I'm actually like super happy that I took the route that I did. Basically, my current job allowed me to do a lot of things that I wouldn't otherwise have been able to do. So it helped me like adjust to working life post college, and it helped me think about like really deeply about what I actually really wanted to do. It helped me save money so that I'm kind of better positioned to pursue something that interests me when I get the chance. And it definitely provided resources that I need to pursue like what I like doing outside of work. So that's why I included some stuff like on this slide. This is stuff that I've done since college, basically in my free time. I haven't been able to do as much like video or sculpture, but I think that it's like gotten me more comfortable with trying new things and just like thinking about what I really, really like to do. You know, one thing that I really appreciate about my art degree from Wake is that it taught me to think like in a certain way. And I know that's like really broad, but I think it's important to approach things from different perspectives. And I know that comes in super handy in my current role. And it also made like preparing to enter a more creative field like a lot easier because I have a ton of work to draw from and past experience like thinking creatively. So all in all, I'm not like super far along in my journey with art, but I'm definitely glad I've like taken the time to like think about things, and I'm happy that I've had like the space to grow and really think about what I care about, because I feel like a lot more confident in what I want to say if I do end up entering a field like where I'm creating. And I'm definitely looking forward to that in the coming months. So that's pretty much all I got.
Thank you, Libby. And thank you again to all of our presenters this evening. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the screen share because it is time for everybody to ask any questions that you have after their presentations. And I have one here in the chat. Let's see. Leanne asks, what would you all wish that Wake had done better in preparing you all for life after school? Everyone's pondering for a second, so we'll give everybody some time to think that over. And in the meantime, if anybody has any other questions. Yes, go ahead.
I think it actually varies by like department, I guess. So I guess I'll answer from like the art department. I think something that would have been good to know is so you don't have that feeling of like, oh no, I no longer have the resources to make artwork, so I don't feel as empowered to make artwork. I think it would have been like, if there would have been some sort of like transition where maybe we could have like, I guess, either discuss like how to move like forward in like gathering the resources to make artwork. I know specifically filmmaking is an expensive hobby, or it's an expensive art form. So like, it's not only just considering like, okay, how do I get like the equipment, which is, a task in itself, but, getting the actors, like reaching out to different, like, understanding like different like legal things you have to like, understand. I think had like just, I guess, bridging that gap a little bit more would have been nice. So it wouldn't be like you have to like almost start from you have to like start, from ground zero. At least that's my experience,
Yeah.
I think that what would have been helpful for me personally would have been maybe speaking, and this is something that also falls on me because I probably should have thought more concretely about the future, but just having more concrete conversations about how we can literally pursue like a job in art, and then what that looks like. Of course, like I think curriculum's important. I was so focused on the projects that I was doing, but I think that would have been most helpful maybe like my senior year, just to like actually start thinking about the future and like more concrete, actionable terms.
So do you think like a capstone course would maybe have filled that gap a little bit?
Actually, yes, I think it's a really good idea. Something that's super like future oriented. But again, I think that also falls on me. I think I graduated and I was like, I'll take the first job I get. And then that's kind of what I did. And I still had time to think about things, but I think I could have done a little more thinking while in college as well.
Yeah, I agree with both Courtney and Libby. I was definitely a mix of both. That you graduate and you have a little bit of like, oh, the floor fell out from under you a little bit. And like a lot of that, kind of saying what Libby said, kind of befalls me. But yeah, having those more concrete discussions and talking about like, okay, what are the paths you can take? What are the things that can help you to get there? And kind of thinking also maybe a little bit about like things like networking and stuff like that. I know we probably talk about it a lot at Wake too, but I've always felt like it wasn't a super big strength of mine. I always felt like focused more on the art making than the other strategic parts of it per se.
Yeah, and building off of that, Paul asks to Courtney and Pauline, did you think about seeking arts commission funding? If, you know,
I did not. And like
Mhm.
I like there's so many like funds and things out there that I know now that I like what Pauline was saying, I like it kind of felt like the floor like fell out from under you. So I was like, I guess I'll just like do it myself. Cause at Wake, that's kind of how we did it, you know. I mean, we had like resources with classes and things like that, but it was like, when you need like when your project is due, you need to go like figure out how you're gonna like make that happen before the due date. And I just kind of took that mentality into the real world too. It was like, all right, I guess I'll like figure out how to make it happen. And now I'm more like aware of like different funds and like resources and things just because of research and everything. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely some of that as well. I have thought a little bit about things like arts commission funding and things like that, mainly because my mom always sends me emails telling me about things that could fund an art project or be like a thing to enter into. She's always kind of like nudging me to do it, so they're in the back of my head. And I think for one of the things I did when I was part of an art festival, I did get funding to do those projects. I was like a fellow. But beyond that, I think it kind of relates back to my thing about feeling that paralysis of creation, or trying to think of like what is like my best idea that I can put forward so these people will want to fund me and back me as well.
Yeah. Also, another thing, I'm just also like really impatient too. So I think that another thing, I was just like, I want to do this, I'm gonna do it. So maybe that was partly me too, but yeah.
Yeah. And our next question we have is, do you have any advice for current students about skills they should sharpen or make sure they have in prep for post-grad art life? That's for everybody. Yeah, question. But
I would say time management, because that's been my biggest hurdle, I think, in making art. Just finding the time to do that. I think that's like your biggest or the most valuable resource is your time. So honing that.
I think the like tangible skills, like actually making art, I would say that is probably what you're already like, getting a really good handle on at Wake. Because like we were saying, I think Wake is very focused on, teaching certain skills and like helping you to actually like, like master what you're doing. So I would say something that would be good to know for like the transition out is definitely, I guess people call them like soft skills, but I would say depending on whatever route you take, I know I took much more the like indie filmmaker route, and I would say just sharpening those skills, like reaching out to people, because you're gonna have to do that a lot, and kind of like getting kind of like gritty and like willing to like fight for yourself and for your ideas and your projects. So that's not exactly a tangible skill, but that's something that is definitely I'd say I use that a lot.
Yeah, 100% to both of those ideas again. And I would just add to that, um, just like really, my advice would be to really enjoy in your time in your like art program and the classes you have, because it's a rare moment and it's not necessarily something that's guaranteed to happen again. So while you're at Wake, take all the art classes you can if you have the ability to be there for the full 4 years, or like my two best friends in the art department were like 5-year seniors. You can do that too if you want. It's not out of the question. When I was at Wake, I had a lot of an attitude of wanting to finish it quickly because of some outside factors, as well as just financially it wasn't a good idea for me to be there for 4 years. But looking back, I would definitely say, yeah, stay there as long as you can, learn and be in all those classes, have all those conversations, because that's really going to shape your view as an artist and your skill set as well.
thanks. Yeah, that's all of the questions in the chat so far. But yeah, again, thank you everybody for coming. And I guess something else that you all brought up, I think is interesting about how, there's that sometimes, I guess, learning curve between, what we learn in our classes versus, okay, how do we actually make use of these skills in the real world and that kind of thing. So I'm glad that everyone touched on that, because those are also things that, I'm myself am pondering, finding myself in the same kind of position of a lot of these seniors who are trying to find work and that kind of thing, and trying to figure out how do we blend, what we do, what we enjoy doing versus, what we need to do to be able to make a living, and can those be the same thing? So I definitely relate to a lot of those questions. And yes, here it is. Paul Bright asks me, can I answer some of those questions as well? I thought I could slide under the radar. Okay, so let's see. Well, yeah, I think definitely for the advice that I would provide to the students would be kind of the same thing. I mean, you learn a lot of these technical skills, and you're in this space where you're able to kind of pick up as many skills as you'd like, within, reasonable credit hours and things like that. But really just taking this opportunity of being in university to take advantage of all the opportunities that are out there, because there are many, and that can also be overwhelming. But I wanted to learn graphic design, so I took a digital art and design class. I wanted to learn video art, took a video art course, photography, photo class, like all those different kind of skills. Because again, like in my experience as well, like in high school, we didn't really have like a visual arts department, so I kind of was really invested in the theater department. And so I would do a lot of work, like technical work with like set and props and things like that, like anything that would get me to work with my hands. And in the meantime, I always wanted to learn photography and figured that's just something I'll figure out in college. And so once I got there, I had that kind of drive to take as many visual art courses as I could muster, as I could manage, with balancing the double major as well. But I definitely always use this, I guess, like metaphor of like being a sponge. I mean, obviously you need to be able to start to think about what you're doing later. And I also maybe didn't do the best of that either, but the idea of you're here, you're around all these resources, so just kind of suck it all in, take as much in as you can, and try to also in the meantime figure out where that's all leading, or try to start thinking about that and having those kind of conversations. How's the graphic design going? Goodness gracious. But I think it's going pretty well. So Paul asked it specifically because in my role as a Start Gallery manager, I've been using a lot of those graphic design skills to design posters for various events. Also helping to work on a catalog for a current gallery exhibition with Haynes Gallery. So I think they're going all right. I hope to learn. I'm in that space now too, just kind of wanting to continue to learn more. And I think that's something that's always important to, even if as you're always kind of thinking about that next step, thinking about what kind of skills that you want to, that you might need for the next step, and figuring out ways to either learn them on your own or learn them through courses if you have the opportunity. So that's my little spiel. There's other questions in here too, but I don't want to take things over. Let me see. But yeah, I mean, I think, again, I know most of our audience currently is, staff and faculty and one alum, Katie. I'll call you out for a second there. But definitely, since this is being recorded, if students are hopefully going to check this out later, and so if we have any additional advice or any other questions we think they would benefit from hearing the answers from, we can definitely take the rest of this time to do that.
I have a bit of advice. I just say like keep making artwork, like however you can figure out like how to do that. And definitely, I think there's something about like during that transition period, you feel like, well, oh, like, because I don't have this anymore. I don't know if it's going to be like good. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it, and then as you like keep working and you keep making things, and you keep progressing, you realize like you like had the skills all along. There was nothing that you needed to like fear or be like worried about. So I would just my biggest bit of advice is definitely just to like keep making artwork.
I just wanted to second what Pauline said earlier, which is that like really savor your time, because I'm so nostalgic for like my time specifically with the art department at Wake, and it was like such an amazing opportunity to be able to just like make things on a whim and then have so many resources, like to Courtney's points earlier. So again, like just really like don't take it for granted and make the most of it.
I'd be happy to share a
Yeah,
little bit
yeah.
too. Also, to add on to all these other wonderful pieces of advice, it's okay if you feel like it's not happening now. It's been about 8 years since I graduated, and I'm just now getting a studio space, doing it again. So yeah, it's pretty emotional for me. I didn't realize how emotional that is, but just be patient with yourself too. Do it. But be patient too. So.
Thank you. Yeah. I think that's great. Yeah, and I think I resonated with a lot of what everybody was saying, especially Pauline mentioned the, the art with a capital A, and Courtney was talking about that too, and Katie and Libby with the kind of just like finding, like making or finding or clawing out that space to kind of create and to continue to express yourself in a way that whether or not it's the art that you might want in a gallery, whether or not it's the art you might wear, just that kind of thing where you're finding a way to create and express yourself. And like that's something that I think, especially for me personally, like in this kind of era of quarantine, finding ways to, like a lot of my artwork in the past kind of, that relies on going outside, taking photos of people and places, and kind of become a little reclusive in the last year for obvious reasons. But, like I always had like a hobby of making jewelry and that kind of thing. And that's always been, or like, designing different, accessories and all these different things. And it turned into like a little like side hustle that I think has kind of been my, salvation throughout all of this. Just because, it's allowed me a way to create that may not be in the same kind of way of creating in the way that I was used to in undergrad, but creating in a way that still kind of allows me that opportunity to, kind of network in my own way, or to continue to, develop those kind of skills that I want to be able to develop. And then, with that idea that hopefully at some point, it'll all kind of come together and all kind of lead to that, whatever that next step is. So I definitely think it's important to always find what it is that you enjoy doing. And even if it's not the main thing, being able to make time for that is so important.
Yeah. I love you said side hustle, because that's how I like consider all my projects now. I'm like, it's like my side hustle. I have a main hustle, like, my 9-to-5 job, but you just keep like working on your side hustle until, you can like make it your main hustle, or, and it doesn't have to be like you make money solely off of like your artwork. It doesn't have to like have that pressure, but, until like you can find a way to like mesh those two worlds, and like what Katie was saying, like, it's not really about like how quickly that comes. It's honestly about like how good you feel doing it, and like, and actually making making the work itself. I think that's something that I think I have a greater appreciation for now that I do work like a regular job, is like I value making artwork, I think, so much more than I even did in school. And I love making artwork there too. But outside now, it's like my own little, it's like something I'm able to create for myself, and it just has a different value for me than or a stronger value than I guess it did, back then.
Yeah. And we have some encouragement in the chat. Paul says that he was 30 before he had real studio discipline. So we are all young yet, right? So there's always time. And I think that's something too that, I found myself certainly, thinking about, that idea that, all these people in their early 20s are kind of freaking out, or mid 20s, later 20s, maybe freaking out about, having it all together. And I'm definitely trying to get more used to and comfortable with the idea that it doesn't all have to be figured out right now. Like there is so much time, there is so much time to figure that out. And, taking that opportunity to, have grace with yourself. And I think and be okay with kind of not having that figured out is also perfectly fine too. But and like kind of necessary, I think, too, with everything being up in the air as it is for many of us. So if there are no more questions or no more pieces of advice, like our drops of golden wisdom we'd like to share with the students, I would be happy to call it a day, or if anyone has anything else they'd like to address, I'll also be happy to discuss a little bit longer. So I'd like to thank everybody who had the opportunity to join us this evening, and thank you again to all of our wonderful alumni, yes, for visiting and speaking about their work, what they've been up to, and our advice for students graduating soon and or just continuing to study at Wake.
Thank you, Kayla, for organizing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for this.